All right, who's going to be host? Who's host?
We're kind of both
I'll
hosts.
be host. All right, I'll introduce us anyway. All right, you ready? This is going to be the first try.
Okay.
It's going to feel cheesy.
Let's hear it.
All right, hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the Story Players podcast. I am Winston Powell, and I am joined as always by my friend and co-host, Zachary Snader.
Beautiful.
Say hello.
Look at you. Look at you doing the work of a host.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
You just,
okay.
like, give me some...
I'm already thinking
Stop,
of a meta note of like, should we just kind of just like do the thing, just sort of go into it, not do like a whole formal...
If you think it's cheesy, we can skip it, but let's do it for now. We gotta go
all
all the
right,
way.
right.
So say hi. Just say hi at least.
Oh, hi.
Okay. And we plan on having a guest today, but the guest is
Busy listening
nowhere to
to
be seen.
1980s South African soul and rhythm music.
Yeah. On Discord, we see him listening to Spotify. We can play his playlist and listen to it and appreciate it. But without the actual person here, we're just us two. So maybe halfway through the episode, he'll appear and we'll go from there. But for now, it's going to be a regular roll episode. And we're going to just take it from here, I guess.
Regular rolls?
Which is a shame because, story players. We're workshopping it. Don't get too wrapped up in it.
Oh, you're
Don't
still
get too wrapped up in it.
Flexible. I thought.
Of course. That was just my...
Okay. Yeah,
that's
cool.
my first try.
All right.
That was my first idea.
I'm down to keep workshopping.
Let it soak in. When you go to edit later, see how it feels. And we can workshop it. But that was that.
You just have to say it out loud.
Not loving
times.
the feedback so far. Getting bad vibes.
No. It's not that.
I'm putting myself out there to be the host. I thought it was cute. Anyway, let's move on.
I think it is. All right. Sure, we can move on.
It takes a minute to let it soak in. Innovation is scary at first, but when you let it soak in,
embrace the innovation of story players.
All right. Well, anyway, let's start off with how you've been. Aside from all the technical difficulties and having a cold.
Oh yeah, I guess we didn't actually talk for the last 30 minutes. We just kind of have been troubleshooting.
No, you're gonna cut that out.
Right.
Can't leave it in. That was excruciating.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's been all right. The last week I've spent working on the pitch deck for my studio, and I've been getting a lot of consultation.
What's a pitch deck?
What's that?
What's a pitch deck?
What is a pitch deck?
Yeah.
Like
I don't know what that is.
The presentation that I'm using to tell the story of what I am building. And
so like okay, I get it. Like your pitch for the thing.
Yeah.
Trying to start. Okay.
Yeah, it's a slideshow that is it's a pitch deck.
I've never heard the term pitch deck before.
Yeah. Oh man, my sweet summer child. It
sounds like LinkedIn words.
That's our LinkedIn words for sure.
I don't need to pitch anything. I just think of the idea and I just have to convince myself to do it.
Oh my God, what an amazing life you lead. That's so beautiful.
Oh man, if only you could see the disgusting, ugly parts of my life, you'd feel totally different.
There cannot be any. I truly cannot imagine it.
No, it's ugly. When you don't have professionalism, you fall into like bad habits and just, the worst parts of your like productivity mindset go away. And like, I've been so struggling getting back into just because working alone on a game, you like lose a lot of motivation if it's not there. So it can be a struggle.
I did deal with a lot of that this week as well with, It's hard, man. It's hard to stay motivated every day. I think there's... I talked with an advisor of mine last night, actually, about this. About how, like, you're going... And I talked with Maritza about it, too. Like, just this idea of, like, you can't you can't really be on all the time unless you're just a freaking psycho, you know? Like
No,
there has to be
that
moments
well
where
runs
you're
dry
vulnerable
quick.
to that. Yeah.
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 I remember in college, Dennis, who's always been a great worker.
Oh,
If you remember
yeah.
Dennis,
Oh my gosh, Dennis was the
he has a
was a
he's
gangster.
like been through the army or the Air Force or something like
Yep.
that. So he's got like a good work ethic, and I think he exposed me to kind of the idea, the mindset to be like, just you can't run on motivation, so don't
Mm,
do it as a rhythm, like do it as a pattern. Give yourself discipline. Like it takes discipline to do it. Like there's going to be days where you're not motivated to do something, but you at least have to sit down and put in the work, put in the hours, whether or not you're feeling motivated. Just for the basic, I need to do a 9 to 5 on this project
yeah.
because I'm trying to be professional. So like, don't look for motivation because it's not always going to be there for you. Look for like a habit, a habitual rhythm, and do that instead.
Mm.
And while I say that, I definitely don't do that all the time, but it's definitely like, I think that's the right direction.
Yeah, as your like default mode of operation, I think it makes a lot of sense to try and work that way. Because then I think that's
Hmm.
the way that when you do fall down, you can kind of pick yourself back up again. Because then you're not like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have motivation. Like, I don't know what to do. It's like, I don't have motivation, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it might not be my best work, but at least I'm going to like try something.
Yeah. Better
Or,
than nothing. Any
yeah,
work is better than
totally.
no work.
Or like if part of your process is to just allow yourself to have those moments to recover, where, I don't know, maybe you need to play games for
Hmm.
part of the day and you just like go and I don't know, go to the forest or whatever you do. I think
Hmm.
like yeah, doing the thing and just continuing to make forward momentum is important, but so is the disconnecting from it all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you got to know your limits.
Yeah.
Know when it's like, I'm fried. I need to just take a break, walk away, do some kind of something else. And being self-employed, that's the benefit, is that you can take a break whenever. And it's also the detriment because you can take a break whenever. And so
Yeah.
my best my best years working where I felt really productive, recently, like I feel bad about my work ethic because I'm just trying to get back into it, you know. But in the past, when I've done projects before, I did take a 9 to 5 mentality, and I always left like a walk outside in the schedule. Like
Yeah.
I would walk before lunch or something, and that would help me just stay sane, just grind out the project, and then you're proud of it afterwards, even if maybe like some of the days you didn't feel motivated.
Yeah.
It didn't depend on that then. It was just about like putting the time and yeah, making good progress.
Right on.
So yeah, cool. Cool,
Yeah.
man.
So been
Check out
doing
our
that, man.
LinkedIn workshop later.
Yeah. Buddy and Zach's LinkedIn motivational talks.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man, and trying to build a studio and a game at the same time has proven difficult. Um, yeah,
You're trying
we
to
could
make
talk.
like an actual. You're trying to make like an actual. We can talk offline if it's too in the
No,
works, in the
I mean
weeds.
we can go into it here. It's not quite the story players topic I was gonna bring up,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean we
Do you want
we
to move on
could,
to
dude.
topics?
I don't know. We could talk about just like what we're building for a whole episode too, if you wanted to do that. Maybe another time if you want to
Let's do
like
that another time. I kind of
simmer
want to
on the
get into
idea.
topics.
All right,
Also because like my progress has been really boring recently. Like I've been doing kind of grindy work,
dude.
so I
Swamp
don't have a
log.
whole lot of progress. It
All
might be
about swamp
better to
log.
save that stuff for. Oh yeah, yeah. Did you see that? That's not a story player's topic.
All right,
That's
yeah,
something
yeah.
else.
Maybe we could like
Maybe.
it. Oh my gosh. All right. I think it would be cool if like once every I don't know, maybe not like once a month or once every 2 months or something, we just sort of like stitch in, hey, this is what we're working on and here's what it's like to be going through
Hmm.
this process of working on this thing.
We could do. We could always do plugs at the end, like what we've been up to, just for like follow us here on follow me on whatever, and this is what we've been up to. Just at the end, just so people can be like, I like that guy from the conversation. Let's see what he's doing, because I think that's a nice spot just at the end, kind of to wrap things up,
Mm.
just like what we've been up to and what we got coming out if we're making content or who we are.
Okay. Well, we'll
If you
talk
want to be, if
more
you want to be
more
professional about it,
yeah, I think we could talk more meta notes afterwards. Cuz I have differing thoughts on that. Um,
right?
but yeah,
Apologies to people listening expecting video game discourse. We're working things out.
Yeah, dude, this is the meat that goes into the sausage, man. This is
I
it.
mean, considering the last episode I saw that you edited was like a lot of us talking about bodily fluids and stuff, I feel like we're gonna get better over time, and this is all growing pains and stuff. So
I mean,
I don't want to hold ourselves to such a high standard just yet when we're early on.
just yet.
So don't worry
So
about it.
we
This
are
is
going to
all
hold
like
ourselves to a high standard at some point, is what
all
you're
right,
saying.
sometime once we get used to it. Yeah, once we get
Okay.
all that stuff. So yeah, topics. I'm curious. I like I said, my topic is kind of hot button and might be a little tiresome and controversial. So
Excellent.
let's start with an easy one. Do you want to start with an easy one? Maybe. Oh, I'm just assuming yours is easier. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
You go first. No, you go first.
arguably, maybe it is. We shall see. All right, man. I wanted to talk with you
Tell me.
about Web3 games.
Web3 games.
Yeah. Are you
I don't know
familiar
that.
with like the crypto games? Games that involve cryptocurrency? No familiarity
No,
whatsoever?
no. I
What
can
is your
imagine
familiarity
like
with cryptocurrency,
when you
buddy?
when you say that when you put cryptocurrency in games next to each other, I imagine a game on Steam that is you install it and it uses your computer to mine cryptocurrency for someone. Is that what that is?
No, not
Like it's
necessarily.
a virus essentially.
Okay. All right. No. Uh, hmm. All right. Now I
What
am.
is it then?
Okay. Let me drop a meta question here for you. Do you think
Oh.
we should have it like if I present a topic like that and you know almost nothing about it, should we continue forward with that topic?
Yes, it's better because now you can explain for the audience if they don't also like. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that stuff is as
Okay.
well. So
I
I'm
don't
the
want
everyman
to.
in this conversation.
All right, so I don't want to come across as like the preeminent authority on this because I'm definitely not. Which is where I was hoping we could maybe have a conversation to get like differing thoughts on it.
I have thoughts on cryptocurrency. I have an understanding of what it is, so we can go from there. I mean, you're the expert on this podcast, so whatever. Tell
Okay,
me what your thoughts are.
let me.
I know.
Okay, sure.
Go for
All
it.
right, I'm
At
going to
least
try
start
not to
with what it
judge this
is.
thought too hard. Okay,
Go for it.
so man, crypto in the games industry. All right, so
Okay. Now that you say it that way, are you talking about like how EA had or Ubisoft
Ubisoft,
made like
yes.
crypto items? Okay,
Yeah,
I
like
can talk about
NFTs.
that.
Have you
Yeah.
heard about NFTs?
Yes, an
Okay.
NFT like item in a game. Oh yeah, I got
Yeah,
opinions on
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, now that you
All
say
right,
it like that,
we're
yes,
finding common
yes.
ground.
That's a
Okay,
good
dude.
example. Why don't you start with that? Because that's a good example. Like the Ubisoft gun barcode stuff.
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
that
Maybe I
was.
guess some context for anyone that does somehow come across this that doesn't know. Um, Cryptocurrency, basically digital money that is not inherently the US dollar. Maybe it's something pegged to the US dollar or some other fiat currency like we use in our countries to transact goods and services, da da da. And they typically live on, or I guess they're all part of like a blockchain, right? So a cryptocurrency is like the digital asset representative of a chain, and it might be used to grant access to membership or to transact for goods or services or to be representative of the fact that you are like a supporter of that chain or to be used for voting rights on that chain. All these different systems can be represented with this with a digital asset, whether it's an NFT or like an actual token.
Tell me if this is a good parallel because this is kind of my understanding. This is like a analogy, I guess. A cryptocurrency or like an NFT or something is a digital commodity like a physical item, only it's traced digitally. So it's
Yeah.
as if I made a chair, like I carved it out of wood or whatever, and I made this chair. That's a commodity, and if I give it to someone, it becomes theirs, and it's unique to them. And
Yeah.
when you say blockchain, it's literally just a documentation of who owned the thing before me, and it keeps track of the basically
Yes.
the where this item goes when it's traded, if it's traded at all. And I don't know what value that. I guess the value in that means it has a footprint online that's permanent. Um, but that's like a good. That's how I remember it. Is like it's basically like trading a physical object digitally, whereas in the past, digital objects you can copy and make infinite amount of, and trade them and pirate them, and so that's the they're trying to. It's kind of like trying to solve a problem with selling things online and having things online be infinite.
Yeah.
It's trying to take an online commodity, trade it online digitally, and make it as valuable or the same kind of perceived value as like an actual item in real life, like a painting or something.
Yeah.
That's my
Totally.
analogy.
I think that's pretty spot on. That's a way better explanation than what I was offering.
I'm
Um,
the everyman. I'm just trying to speak to the everyman
no, that's great.
because
So
I don't look up a lot of this stuff.
so that idea initially was kind of relegated strictly to the digital token side of things, the actual currency, as opposed to a chair or whatever, right? So imagine it was just the currency, and then it kind of bled into chairs and such. And then from the
With
chairs and
NFTs, right?
such, yes, exactly. And then that kind of bled into games. Because there is a bit of a natural extension there, right? It's like
Yeah.
games have digital assets that can be purchased, sometimes sold from individual users. I mean, you can think of like the Steam Workshop. You can think of any big games microtransaction store, right? Even Blizzard when they did the two-sided marketplace in Diablo 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there is kind of this natural fit for the idea to be like, okay, we're gonna have like a digital storefront. You're gonna be able to transact these digital goods, da da da. And then where it got weird was with okay, let me color this by saying that like I actually believe there is room for Web3, which is encapsulating of like digital tokens, of blockchains, of NFTs. I believe there is room for that to exist in games. However, the people that primarily work in this space and the focus on output, I believe, have been so far skewed in the direction of just trying to make money that it has nullified so much of the value around the idea so as to make it almost impossible for any consumer to like be in the middle on the idea. Like the idea
Mm-hmm.
itself has become a battleground. And like I
Mm-hmm.
would like to think that I have a somewhat nuanced perspective on it because I did used to speculatively invest in cryptocurrency, and that was a whole dark period of my life. Um, but you know, it hasn't like it has definitely shaped my perspective on these things. Um, but I also like I think it could be interesting. It's just the products to show me that it's a valid idea at the level of like the broader market that's not there. And then I see, man, I've been on LinkedIn a little bit more recently, but mostly because Twitter sucks now, and I'm kind of like able to connect with people through LinkedIn in the games industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing more Web3 people who are very like it's not too dissimilar from American politics of like
Oh yeah.
Republicans kind of being the iconoclasts of the political space and Democrats being like, oh, no, 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 just yelling at them like, oh, this is wrong, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then when you have these conflicting ideas meeting in the same space, you get like hard-headedness in both directions. And I think it's
Yeah. Totally.
really frustrating though when the Web3 people that I see are so like entrenched in this perspective that anyone who doesn't adopt Web3 is just a moron or doesn't see the future or anything like that. And they're so focused on being right about this idea that they have invested so heavily into, that any pushback on the idea or on how they approach the conversation is, it's just like impossible to
Yeah.
find any
Very
middle
critical.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be critical without them like taking that, you know, without a grain of salt, them just like taking it on its merits, just having like a real conversation. And I've seen more and more people either push back against Web3 entirely, or get kind of sucked up into it. And then the strangest part is that it changes their personality. They're now like red pilled or whatever, and they're
They're the
like,
yacht apes.
dude, totally. They're the yacht apes, and they're like, anyone that's not a yacht ape is a dumbass. And I'm just like, dude, someone that I admired at one point in the games industry, started a new company, raised some money for it, and
Mhm.
he'd like scaled some studios before, where he was fighting against some really really strong currents swimming upstream, and then uh, there was this whole like this guy, I'm not gonna name him, but anyway, this dude posted on LinkedIn saying that like part of the reason that the all the games industry layoffs are happening is because there's not a big embracement of Web3 in the space. And I'm just like, dude, he was saying that
A little bit of a
everyone that
walk.
got laid off like did it to themselves effectively. I'm just like, oh my
Ouch.
goodness, like how can you have
There's a
so
whole
little
like
empathy?
there's
And
a there's a lot of there's a lot of space in between those two thoughts that he put together. He made a
exactly,
big jump there.
it's a pretty big
But yeah,
jump.
maybe there might be something there, but that's ignoring the whole like just the whole
The whole
industry, the issue with
human
the industry in
element,
general.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and just also acting so cold about it in general.
Yeah, so a bunch of people like reacted and got really upset about that, because rightfully so. Like, was he really just trying to troll bait? I mean, maybe, but if he was actually trying to engage in dialogue, which I think people took him at face value on that, um, he came at it incorrect. Like, he came at it without a real earnest perspective, and I think he was just trying to rile people up. And then this is someone who is claiming himself to be a game developer, right? But he is dunking on all these other game developers, and it's like,
Mm.
dude, if you're not part of this community, then what are you really a part of? Like, what are you really building? Are you just a Web3 game developer? And if you are just a Web3 game developer, then is Web3 games like its own thing and you don't actually want to be part of the industry? And if that's the case,
Mm.
man, like, how are you all going to succeed? Like, the bottom is going to drop out eventually. And the rug's been pulled a few times, and somehow there was magically a whole hell of a lot of pennies underneath that rug, and like someone else picked it up. But if you found an industry on this idea of like pulling the rug out from every other person next to you, and by not actually creating commonality and camaraderie with the peers in your space, and your only connective tissue is, hey, check it out, I own this sick bored ape. Like, oh, you have a bored ape too, oh cool, all of our Twitter profile pictures are different colored monkeys. Like, all right,
Hmm.
like that's great and all, but are you really fostering an environment where people can be part of the community because they're rallied around these ideas, they're rallied around these products, around the people making this stuff? And that's the thing that I'm not seeing from Web3, where a lot of it is just like this more and more weird fringe Twitter thing where it's like, oh, everyone else doesn't get it, we're going to go be millionaires off in our little corner. And it's like, dude, you're part of a bigger party, and your corner at the party fucking sucks to be around. And you're not seeing that, you know?
Mm.
I just
I
want them to see that.
the this topic is big because there's a lot of like it's a new currency, right? Like we've had regular currency, regular value of things for centuries. So we're so familiar with the concept of like gold standard or silver standard or whatever, like money is based off of the value of what we pass around to buy things. The thought of a new one entering the what do you call it? The habitat.
Yeah.
I think that's just a completely like crazy idea for a lot of people. It is a big like upsetting, and I say that upsetting in that it definitely shifts the dynamic of things, like introducing a new type of currency in this digital age, where I think there's plenty of validity to it, but because we're early on, I mean, like cryptocurrency has been around for probably 10 years,
Yeah,
like in the
12
conversation
years.
for a little while. So
Yeah.
I won't say it's new, but compared to like the dollar, it's pretty damn baby right now.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of things happening and a lot of things that apply to this, like who we're seeing talking about it online. Obviously, we're always going to hear about the extreme sides of things. We're going to hear about people who are way against it and people who are way towards it. And the people in the middle, or the people who take it as a measured sort of acceptance, we're not going to hear from them. Unfortunately, those are the people who probably have the best take on that sort of thing, or the people who don't talk about it, or the people who aren't sensationalizing it. And so the first big problem that I see with the conversation is majorly controlled by folks who don't see cryptocurrency as a decentralized currency. They see it as a way to invest in current day currency.
Yeah.
So like they're interested in it because they can make millions of dollars from
Right.
it. Because it's
Right.
getting them millions of dollars. And so what we usually see online are people who are trying different scams, different schemes to get rich. Because they were the vocal majority of people. I imagine the majority of investors are people who just want dollar signs. We're seeing that, and it's giving the idea of cryptocurrency this bad impression. Because if you look into decentralized currency in itself is totally like understandable. It's something that is interesting and it's something that is feasible. And there is a value in our age of technology where everything's online, especially for creators, for basically making commodities real online, essentially. Because when you make something online, it can be pirated, it can be passed around. The value of it is extremely decreased when it's online. As soon as you release a game, it's immediately pirated, and it gets diluted that way. So I see value in it in that way. And the idea of decentralized currency, because that's an NFT thing really specifically, but the idea of a currency that is like decentralized from the economy that we know and hate today, love or hate today, is a nice idea. It's a bright future kind of sunny horizon idea, because right now we're all suffering from the economy being kind of like, totaled from all these different sorts of troubling things that happen in the world, like political parties making decisions that we don't agree with, just the state of the housing markets, different markets. It is scary. Like, we don't like the economy right now.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm afraid of it. Like, it's not in a good place. And so the idea of another economy away from all that, where you can get a fresh start and you can have something that now has a realistic value that is finite. I think one of the big problems, I'm not an analyst. I'm not any sort of like economy type. Like I'm an artist, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the big problem with the economy is that it seems like an infinite pool of money keeps coming out of nowhere, right? Like there's trillions and trillions of dollars in debt in a lot of countries. The United States isn't the only country with debt. Every country has some kind of debt. Mm-hmm. And because of that, the value of money is so low that it's like a scary place to even invest in money itself. Like even just thinking like this $1,000 that I own is getting less and less valuable by the day. Yeah, sucks. So to imagine like, and it's because they're creating money, they're making money and adding money out of nowhere, out of thin air into the economy to stimulate it, I guess. But to me, it doesn't make sense. So with cryptocurrency, like, sure, you can have Dogecoin, you can have whatever, all the different coins being cropped up, being pulled out of people's asses. But when you're talking about Bitcoin or something, that's kind of, it has kind of an ecosystem. I don't necessarily know exactly how it works, but I heard, or I imagine it's a finite resource that needs to be mined, and there will be an end of it sometime,
Yeah.
and there will be a certain amount of Bitcoin or divided Bitcoins that can be passed around. And that is, in my opinion, that's like, obviously my humble opinion, that's a healthy way to do economy, is to have it based off something finite. For example, we used to be an economy based off gold, because gold is a finite resource on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen anymore. Our money is based off nothing now. It's based off of just like whatever the government wants to start creating. Like, I don't know what they're using as a standard anymore. It doesn't seem like there's a standard. So with that, you're devaluing money. And so in that way, cryptocurrency is kind of like an interesting concept, because there is that safety. It being digital obviously makes it vulnerable to hacking and all sorts of stuff. And if you lose your server physically, you lose track of that blockchain, the proof of existence of the currency. So it comes with its own caveats. But if you're, as a measured response to cryptocurrency in general, it is not a bad thing. And there is a potentially good thing there. But like you said, the vocal majority, or maybe like I said, I don't know, people are using it just to scam people, just to quickly get more US dollars, just to get real money.
Yeah.
Their end game isn't decentralized economy. Their end goal is to stay in the same economy, have Bitcoin still, but also sell the Bitcoin for real money. And they do that in a scammy way, in a sleazy way, in a kind of a bot spammy way on Twitter and stuff. Like, you always see that sort of stuff, like, hey, check out this thing, click the thing, or people's YouTube channels getting taken down and replaced by Bitcoin propaganda stuff. Like, it has this bad impression right out the gate. As soon as it got popular, it started getting this bad impression. And so I think that's where a lot of the negative conversation comes from. And a lot of the bad vibes, like you said, that guy you were following on LinkedIn, like, as soon as you get vibes like this person just wants to make money from me, or he's only thinking about his money, that's a bad look for most people. Unfortunately, that's a very popular look amongst the yacht apes and amongst the people who are vocal about investing in this sort of thing. It's a big topic to unpack, and I feel like there is definitely experts who can go into it a lot better. But I think that's a good segue into like how this applies to video games, right? Like, what are they trying to incorporate this thing into video games? Because video games are a digital commodity.
Yeah.
And so obviously producers and stuff were like, NFT? How can we use this to make money?
Yeah. So, all right. So on that note specifically, there is this company called Futureverse, and one of the people I don't know if he's a co-founder on the board or something, but Ernest Cline, the guy that wrote Ready Player One, is like part of this company, Futureverse, and their idea is effectively to make a Ready Player One, like a real Ready Player One, like the actual metaverse where everyone goes into this world, and this world is interoperable with all the other games and such out there. And idealistically, like, it sounds really cool on paper, right? But the execution of it, like, Ready Player One happened in a fucking dystopian world, right? Where these people are living in trailers stacked on top of trailers, where they have their goggles glued to their faces all the time. Like, is the fact that they're trying to emulate the thing in the movie that led to the dystopian future without a hint of irony. I'm just like, you all are selling a vision that you've already sold a different way before. And it just feels so grotesque and perverted as an idea, because it makes me feel like, okay, if I just step one layer removed from what you're presenting outwardly, it seems like you're just trying to make money here. Like, you're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. You don't actually want to create this future metaverse where everything's connected because you want everything connected, because that already exists, man. That's what games have been ever since we've been able to connect online with one another. That's exactly what the metaverse, like that's what it was. Version 1.0, people being able to play games and live in digital worlds together, experience
Hmm.
digital worlds together. But like
Right.
this version now where there's this extra layer of no, 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 but this is the metaverse. Like, dude,
It's
no,
I think
we're already there, you know? And then their
it's
first games are like they're like the world's first AI soccer game. And it's literally just like a soccer game that has AI characters in it. Like this
mhm.
perversion of AI as in non-player controlled characters. Like this has existed before. You're going to tell me this is the first thing ever? Are you kidding me? Like all the Kairosoft games were doing like AI soccer games 10, 14 years ago, whatever, right?
Hmm.
And they're
Here's
selling
the
this as
thing,
like
though.
it's gold laden now. So yeah, it's a lot.
Here's the thing. We've known for a while video games are cool. Big businesses are just now realizing video games are cool because they've gotten so widespread and so popular that they've become very, very viable as financial investments. Because of that, and because of the capacity of what games offer, for example, like an MMO, it has an economy, it has a population, it has culture, even. And it is infinite because it is digital.
Yeah.
If you think as a big business fat cat, you basically see the digital space as infinite real estate to advertise, to sell, to have a community, to have a world order within, right? And at the press of a button, you can do whatever you want, and it's practically free for the cost of some servers, right? Which I mean, albeit pretty expensive, but for a big company, sure, I'll pay for servers to have this like expansive universe where everything I say goes. I can put ads anywhere I want. The kind of popularization, or I mean, I would say like it's not popular, but it's sticking around, is the VR space where you're actually going in and you're. I don't think it's been successful yet. I think it's been kind of surviving. Like it's sticking around because it is very cool and the
Mhm.
technology is almost there. Like with the new Apple headset or whatever, I think we're kind of getting to a point where we've basically got a device that can handle this sort of like what we expected of a virtual headset sort of thing. So I think the idea, because basically you can't just everyone make a metaverse and have it work.
Right.
People need to jump on this idea. And I think as soon as Meta realized it, like Facebook realized that they needed to be the first to stick around, they jumped on it as fast as they could. They released this goofy ass like metaverse thing, like whatever it is. I've seen videos on it. I haven't experienced it. I don't have VR or anything, but they've basically tried to uh, grab the real estate before anyone else can and make their virtual metaverse the real one or the first one that people think of. Because it is like you think of the metaverse first because it's called the metaverse. They're called Meta. It was the first thing we saw where you can put on the headset and go in and be swept away on this like dorky 3D like whatever thing that they produced. But their foot is in the door. Like they are the one to start and be in the conversation. And now they have the real estate already, and now they can do whatever they want with it. Now they have, like, I don't know how successful it is,
And not
but
very is kind of the thing though, because like VR chat had
it's there.
infinitely more players despite having
But
tens of
VR chat
billions of
isn't
dollars fewer to invest in.
the framework of VR chat is just to have a chat room that's fun and customizable. Players can customize. There's no economy involved. There's no like I think the
Yeah.
framework is under construction. That's why it looks so ugly right now. And whether it's Meta or whether it's another company or even like even if like VR chat decides to do something, or maybe like the next Second Life or something will be a VR or whatever or something. I think we're seeing like the under construction version, and I think the potential we're going to see it building on top of itself like as we go along. I think it's going to be something of perseverance in a couple years, 10 years or so. We'll start seeing these meta spaces that are more appealing, very integrated with daily life. I think that's where Meta works. The Meta space works for Facebook is because they've got a community already. They have everyone on Facebook playing those games. who they can now suck into their metaverse. And now they have like a community in there, and they have an audience for their ads and all that stuff. So it's basically investing in a second reality, a decentralized reality, where you have total control over everything, and you can subject those people to whatever you like to make money. And it is very appealing as like if you're thinking big fat cat business, like cigar chomping, like you can just put ads in the sky. Like people can pay to have their face in the sky, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a very real possibility of having like this virtual world very capitalized. And I think that's what they see. And that's why they're so in on it. And like we're seeing the ugly side of it right now. Like I've seen videos on the Metaspace. It looks super dorky. It looks like baby's first Unity game, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And it's not well implemented. It's not very smooth, not very satisfying to interact in there, but their foot is in the door in a very real way. And I think we will see, unless they abandon the pursuit, I think we will see Meta as a big name in this conversation still in the future when there are other competing metaverses going on. So I think it's the early stages. We're seeing a lot of dorky stuff because it's early, but I think it will be something pretty appealing for most people pretty soon. And that's going to mean big business for a lot of people.
I like a pretty big part of me thinks that's extremely cool. You know, not necessarily the capital, the inevitable outcome of capital kind of ruining it in the same way that the current iteration of the internet has seen that happen, right? Where it's gone from an open ecosystem to a more and more narrow ecosystem.
Like 3 websites.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think the biggest concern for me, honestly, is not even the idea, but the stewardship behind it, where the people who are trying to foster this culture, who are trying to build this movement, who are trying to like be the visionaries for these experiences, are they really motivated by making the best version of that? Or are they motivated by making the version of that like makes them the most money?
No. I mean, we're seeing through, like as a kid, metaverse is just a fun time. As adults, we're seeing straight through to the money-making part of it, which is kind of just the way the world goes round nowadays, is things only are created because we got big investors making it happen. Like even our favorite movies only happen because someone who has no idea about movies invested in a project they thought was applicable, was worthwhile in like making money, right?
Yeah.
Like even the most like artsy fartsy movie that has a publisher, is that what it's called? The studio behind it, producer. Yeah. That producer might not be a good guy, might not be someone who's like really like, oh yeah, I believe in the product for just the sole purpose of it being good for the art like community or whatever, like being a positive influence on the world. Like they're just really thinking about, is it a viable product? And that's as simple as it is. Like things only get made because they're viable products. Even something that I work on, obviously like I try to displace myself from just making it because of money. But at the end of the day, I make it because that's how I'll sustain my life. You know, like at the end of the day, I am going to charge money for it. I'm not going to just be like, no, I've influenced the art flow for other people and I've inspired people. Like that's a benefit of it. But really like without money, I can't go on to make a bigger, more successful game later. I can't reach more people later. Like it is all tied to money in a capitalist ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, so you can't get away from that.
Right. But like the motivation at the end of the day can be like, do I want the most money or do I want this money so that I can keep reinvesting into this thing? Like sustainability versus
that's
infinite
the tipping
growth.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's where the tipping point, it becomes kind of gross when you think of like infinite growth is kind of the name of the game when it comes to investors and big business decisions. It is all about getting bigger and bigger, chasing the bigger fish. And that I think is a big flaw in the way capitalism is working, because obviously it's unsustainable, right?
Yeah.
It's a business is always great until it gets bought by a bigger business and they make decisions that don't work for the product and then it fails and then they sell it and then they go on to leave these like destroyed planets in their wake as they buy things and grow, and and so that's the big flaw in the capitalistic stuff. That's one of the big flaws. And so it's ugly when it gets to that point. That's the tipping point for a lot of people, is when you see decisions solely made to make money as opposed to something very well disguised to make money. And that, coming back to NFTs, and my example that I thought of that made me think of was the Ubisoft. I think it was Ubisoft who put like NFTs in their game. At that point of announcement, NFTs were looking like on the other side of that. They were looking very selfish. They're looking very greedy during that time. And when they announced it at that time, sure, the yacht apes are all for it, but people seeing it from the outside who are like, you're not fooling me. You're just doing that because it's like in the zeitgeist. It's like, it's like, it can make you money. And so because we saw it, it was an ugly, like cheap way to make a buck on their part. Right.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it anyway. It was just like chasing the trend, obviously driven by money. And they didn't have the like artistic backing. Like what they decided to do with it was, for anyone who didn't hear the news article or whatever, this was I think 2 years ago or something like that. They basically made a store, like not unlike other digital stores that already exist, like within first-person shooters where you buy skins for your guns or whatever. They're basically selling, I'm using air quotes in my mind for this, unique, and air quote, cosmetics for objects or unique objects in themselves with a barcode or like a serial number.
I think it was like, it was
it.
the same helmet, but it was like different numbers on the helmet.
People they were basically selling, you could buy copies of this helmet, which I don't think was even that interesting to begin with, just a helmet for your character. But it would technically be on the blockchain, on Ubisoft servers, blockchain, whatever. And it would technically be a limited run sort of thing. So they were trying to create that ecosystem. They were trying to create their own blockchain. They were trying to create digital commodities. But they did it in the most like lazy way to where it didn't look that interesting, and it was really trend chasing at the end of it. And it also didn't distinguish itself that much from a regular online marketplace where you could just buy any number of digital helmets.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't that well separated from that. So it was kind of an ugly look for them. And that was the tipping point for a lot of people, was just like, it looks more greedy than it looks cool.
Yeah.
It looks like more like you're looking for people to invest in something that isn't worth investing in anyway. So that's where it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, was that.
For sure. Yeah. I feel that, man. Like if they had, it was for one of the Ghost Recon games, I think, right? Like if they had just given everyone who played Ghost Recon one of these helmets, just like airdropped, right? Like anyone who was a player of the game just got one of these helmets, and every single one of those helmets was like a unique design, right? They just generated or found whatever, millions of assets, however many players they had, and every single player had their own unique helmet, like truly unique to them. Not a serial number or a barcode or whatever on the back of the helmet, but like mine is a unicorn helmet. Mine is like, it's a mohawk on fire, right? Whatever. And then allow players to swap around, like create an organic marketplace. And then like, hey, if Ubisoft takes a cut and like it's 10% and 90% goes to the person who sold the thing, like, okay, I feel way less terrible about this because the players are the ones getting the vast majority of the benefit. You as the facilitator of that exchange take a small cut, like, okay, I totally get that. You have to run the marketplace, whatever.
Yeah.
But the value wasn't there for the players, They were just trying to extract value from people.
That would have been a great idea, is just to like randomly generate based off of like, just make a random generator, and just anyone who makes an account gets a randomly generated unique helmet that's like ridiculous looking. And they will naturally, people will add value and devalue these items based on the way they look. And that's enough of a gimmick to sell the idea. They didn't even do that, No. Like how fun would it be to just be like, okay, I'm making my Ubisoft account. Oh, it generated this like stupid like bunny ear thing, whatever. Like,
yes.
It's unique. It's interesting. It's fun. It's maybe not something interesting for you, but then kind of get people looking around at other people's helmets and being like, oh, I'll buy that from you, or like, you want to trade helmets, or like,
Dude, yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that's something that's kind of like, it makes me think of like when you join a forum and it gives you a randomly generated icon, like avatar icon. Some forums do that. That's fun in and of itself. Like, just, that's me now. I'm this like weird butterfly with triangles on its wings. Like, cool. Like, I'll deal with that. That's like something interesting. And then to create a marketplace for trading that stuff, like, sure, that's cool. I like that idea. But yeah, they took the laziest, fastest route, and kind of, you saw right through it. Everyone saw right through it. It's sad too to imagine people paying for that stuff, because they have it now. As long as they have their Ubisoft account, they're gonna have that stuff. And I think, I don't know the legalities behind it, but I imagine Ubisoft is obliged to keep those items like forever, right? They're obliged
That's a
to
good
or
question.
either buy
I'm
back.
not sure.
Because this is another weird thing about NFTs for me is, depending on who you get where you buy the NFT, which marketplace the NFT comes from. Because NFTs can come up in it. It could be a Roblox NFT. It could be a Counter-Strike NFT. It could be anything. They're all, you think I'm now on the decentralized economy when I buy an NFT. No, you are now on the Ubisoft economy, because their servers are isolated from another server who has another like run of NFTs on them, or, it's all separate, honestly. Like, that's where it gets lost to me. Like, you can't trade an Ubisoft helmet with a Yacht Ape and then have it be all tracked on the, like,
I mean,
I don't
like,
think that works that way.
I don't know if Ubisoft's game did this in particular, but like other games do allow that, where the assets used for that game are traded on an open marketplace like OpenSea. And I think that's something that this Futureverse organization is trying to kind of solve for, is like the interoperability between these games. But it's
Okay.
still, I don't know, man. Like, the motivation
They
behind
need
it
to
is still
be,
like, are you actually trying to support players to really give them this experience, or do you just want to create an environment where you are making as much as possible through the facilitation of these transactions? And that's
right,
that's
more
the
the
thing.
latter for
That's the
sure.
thing where it comes back to the people for me that are running this whole ship, man. It's like, I have not seen anything from the stewards of this space in its present iteration that gives me confidence in the direction of the entirety of Web3 in games. Um,
Right.
so yeah, man, that is my topic for this week. And
That's
I
great.
know we could
I
talk
got the
for
window
another
cleaning
hour
thing
about
on.
it, but we probably should do yours as well.
Sure. Honestly, I think that's a nice segue, because I was going to bring up anyway. My topic that I wanted to bring up just to chat about was AI image generation, or just AI
Okay.
generations. And I think this is a nice, like a nice, I don't want to say bedfellow. What's a good word? Just a good combo with what your topic was, because it's all,
Yeah,
people
it's
feel gross about it
complimentary
just in the same way.
for sure.
Yeah, complimentary. But I also think there's a really interesting side to it too, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah, AI image generation, if you haven't been in the news, is been a huge stirrer recently on the social media, because people have, for a while now, for a few years now, they have created a technology that can basically learn and understand images and apply meaning through kind of a tagging system to those images, to the point where you can type a prompt into an engine and have it generate what you typed in. So I could type in blue room webcam footage, a guy scratching his chin, wearing a blue t-shirt, and there's plants in the background. And it'll generate kind of like, it'll generate all those things. And it has a level of freedom to do other things. So like, yeah, I want to know what your thoughts are on the whole thing first, because I personally, as an artist, have been thinking about it quite a bit. And I think I could probably go on for a while too about it, but I want to hear like where you stand on it right now. Like, what are your thoughts on
Well, I'm actually not here right now. I typed in a prompt
it?
into a generator. Bearded man in
Right.
liminal space, podcast host, realistic style.
Yeah.
um, Man, I am so torn on this, because thematically, I think a lot of my thoughts carry from my feelings on the Web3 stuff. Like, the
Hmm.
stewards of this movement are not in it for the right reasons. I think like the most telling thing is the fact that OpenAI just went ahead and trained their entire LLM. And I guess like everyone who's trained an LLM, a large language model, basically like the training data for their AI has been trained on content created by other people with,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, forget the recognition of the work, which is very important. There's not even any compensation for these people who
Mm-hmm.
have now basically become the mechanism for these multi-billion, potentially future multi-trillion dollar organizations who are trying to
Mm-hmm.
damn near monopolize an entire future industry. These companies that are not even offering like real thought or consideration or care into how people are affected by these innovations. They're just
Mm-hmm.
going, you know, full speed ahead, guns blazing, like this is what we're doing, man. We don't really care who gets burned in our way. That's the piece for me that really has me so kind of distraught by how this technology has been implemented. You know, it's not the idea, it's the implementation. Because I think the
Mm-hmm.
idea is really cool. Like, it's great that if we wanted to, we could take this podcast, feed it through, even CapCut has a tool to like AI remove coughs and breathing noises and stuff, right? And like, that's awesome. Speaking of, excuse me, even though it's not perfect yet, like the fact that that option is there to remove the tedium of the creative process, to
Mm-hmm.
empower people to like just be better and more efficient at creating things, I think that is rad. Even AI image generation, like there's a lot of non-creative people out there, you know, a lot of people who, I mean myself included to a great degree, that can't be like, okay, I have a vision for, I don't know, some sort of Lord of the Rings landscape, right? And if I were to try to like paint or draw that vision myself, I might really struggle with being able to go from ideation onto paper. So I'd probably
Mm-hmm.
need to commission someone like a concept artist, have a whole conversation with them, try to find something that is kind of akin to that vision. Or I can get a rough approximation by just typing that prompt into OpenAI or Dolly or Midjourney or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, However, right, the process for me to do that is to have an idea, to figure out how I would communicate that idea, to create connection with another person on that idea, and then to work with that person to bring the idea to life. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like maybe it's old school now of me to say like that's the
To
process
interact with a
that,
person.
dude, like that is such a great part of being a human being, is being able to create things on our own and with one another. And I think if we lose that piece of creation that inherently connects us together, like what are we really making and who are we making it
Mm-hmm.
for? And I think
Right.
that's the scariest part of all of this to me, is like the the profit motives behind all of this technology could not
Mm-hmm.
care less about the human process of creation. Um,
Right.
and I am so worried about a future where that process is devalued or has no value.
Yeah, or absent from the world, from products like paintings or artistic things. Yeah, I
Right.
think a big part of this, like the turmoil, is because the technology is new, it's accessible, newly accessible to a lot of people. Like most people can make whatever ChatGPT account and start generating images or generating prompt text or whatever the heck it does. Um, because it is new, like any new industry, people are capitalists are immediately trying to look for the most extreme way to make money off of it, while things are in their kind of proto mode. Like there's no laws against any of this stuff right now. Laws take forever to pass anyway.
Hmm.
So likely there won't be laws for a good long time for any of this stuff, even like the cryptocurrency stuff that we're talking about, the marketplaces and stuff like that's all very new stuff. And the whole moral dilemmas or legal challenges of AI image generation, they haven't been addressed by a court or governments or anything, and they won't be for a few years. I can't imagine. Because of that, obviously capitalists are going to push it as far as they can for as long as they can until it becomes illegal, and then they'll dial back and find other ways through to get to places where they can make money again. The immediate scare, especially for artists or creators whose work is being used for training data for these models and these AI engines. Like you said, they're not getting compensated. And on top of all that, so their stuff is being stolen and their work is being devalued. Like, why would I hire an artist, pay him $500 to create a matte painting for me or whatever, or anything, when I could have, like, I could download Stable Diffusion for free and a model for free and just generate my Lord of the Rings landscape for free with very, very little effort on my part, and basically get kind of what I wanted out of it for free. Like, if you're thinking logically, if you're thinking just money wise, there's no reason to do any of that stuff. So a lot of people are being stepped on because of this. And there's a lot of industries like concept art and like writing and like any sort of artistic developments are being kind of devalued because of how easy it is to make images now. I'm not going to call it artwork just yet. But images because there's a lot of people who, like, this is another big issue, is people who aren't artistically inclined have very low standards for what they need. So, like, if you just need a poster or something to promote orange juice or something, like, I'm just looking for a poster to show people the orange juice. Like, I just need an orange juice poster. So type in orange juice poster and it'll generate the orange juice poster.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care what because when you generate, I don't know if you've used any of these tools before, but when you generate an image, it kind of just makes anything it wants, like, within the parameters.
Yeah.
And so you'll get stuff that looks good usually. But if you had a specific idea in mind, like, for example, if I wanted to recreate your webcam, like I was saying earlier, it would take a lot of energy to get it to generate from scratch your webcam output.
Right.
Obviously, I could, like, take a screenshot of you and run it through the engine and make you look like really muscular and stuff. More muscular, I should say. But no, I need me to look more muscular. I'm all skinny.
Buff Buddy. That'll be our next project. Just AI that makes people buff.
Yeah. Oh, it exists already. There's no work to be done. It already exists. I know, Zach. But yeah, like, the people with no expectations will get what they want immediately. And so that's kind of like, when I look at AI generation as an artist, I see, like, a lot of issues with, like, what's going on in the illustration, like why it looks bad. I can kind of interpret that stuff, but your average person is going to glance at it and say, that's fine, that's filler, that works, and accept it. So anyone who's not an artist is going to be totally satisfied with these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of snuck its way through the radar of a lot of people because it works. It does work. It makes really, really appealing images really easily because it is based off of millions and billions of appealing images. It's learned. It knows what it looks like.
Man, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the part where it feels like the compromise between this train moving at 1,000 miles per hour and any kind of brake system, like, does not exist, right? It is just like, damn the torpedoes, man, like, just full speed ahead, we're going. Because even in the game that I'm working on, like, there's an artist on the team and she's incredibly talented, but I'm the one that has the vision, and I'm not an incredibly talented artist. But I have been a starving artist before. Like, I worked on video games, and I've drawn, I've been a 3D modeler. Like, it's not like I haven't done those things at all. But because I have done those things, I understand just how hard it is to go from here's an idea to here's a realization of that vision that all parties kind of agree on and have, like, a shared imagination and realization for. Whereas, if someone hasn't been in that position of creating anything or having had to give artistic weight or value to something that they think they created, then we are just going to, or they, I don't know, it's really hard to delineate at this point. But like the people in that position are just going to be okay with
Mm.
not trying to work with a person to make it better. They will
Mm.
be okay with like the worst possible version of that thing or just the default version of that thing because they don't see any value in working with a
Hmm.
person to change it or make it better.
Yeah,
Um,
and also like they just don't have standards like a lot of people have. Like I know when you're talking to a client, like as an artist, when you're talking to a client, they have a vague idea of what they want. They need these specific things to be touched on in the work of art. Um, but a lot of people who aren't artistically minded will be happy with anything, with whatever is put in front of them. Like that's cool. Like whatever, that's cool. I generated this thing. That's cool. And I think there's like a wow factor there for a lot of people who is like, I'm imagining this like dragon in a knight, and they're standing off. There's like a standoff, and the dragon's in the background. And the knight is like getting ready to attack. That's their concept that they want to make. They generate it, and the generation image could be a dragon in midair flying, blowing fire down at a knight who's guarding himself. Completely different concept with similar elements because the prompt was all there. But they're like, that looks cool. That's it. I'm going to use that. They have no like. They don't mind if it diverges a little bit from there, because whatever they see is way cooler than what they imagined. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And so there's that wow factor that really really captivates people who aren't producers of artwork, because they're not used to that, like putting it on paper, getting what's in your head out on paper. They're just not used to that sensation. And so anything is like, some of the art you see, people are like, yeah, I made this thing. It took me hours to make this AI generated image. Like on Twitter, people post a lot of stuff like this.
yeah.
And as an artist, you look at it and you say like, the lighting balance is way off. The contrast is way high. Her boobs are way too big. Why does she have no expression? Why is she looking like vaguely off into the distance? Like all these weird like nuances that bug
Yeah.
me as an artist who's kind of developed a taste over time. I don't want to be overly mean to these people, but there is a reason to be mean to these people. I want to touch on this after. But to me, who's kind of developed my skills and my perception, my standards for what I want my stuff to look like when I'm done with it, I see all these things that they just haven't had the time, they haven't put in effort, they have very low standards, no taste, and so anything that's overly gaudy, flashy, edgy, like they love it. They'll just eat it up, and that's fine. I really think that's like to the detriment of the medium of AI art, is seeing all this garbage, because it really gives it a bad impression. Because I've seen great art made. I've seen great AI images generated in a really nice way where it's beautiful at the end and it looks really interesting and unique and cool, and they really spend a lot of time tweaking things, and it looks great, especially for like Photoshop applications, like compositing images together. Like AI is a really big boon for that sort of work, where you're just taking images and kind of putting them together in a Photoshop type of way. I've seen really cool, creative things that people put a lot of energy in and used AI as a tool to make. And I think that's a very valid way to use the technology, but
Yeah.
still with the caveat of the fact that the thing is using a model that uses art that they stole, essentially, or that
Yeah.
they don't have the rights to. So there's always that caveat. But I wanted to touch on the people. This is a funny like little subset of people who I think are using AI a lot. There's a couple funny subsets I hope we can get to at some point. Maybe if I don't forget. This one is something that I was actually kind of like, I giggled at a little bit, but it's a little sad as well, where there's a huge community of people using AI as a vindicating way to say, like, all these years I've been oppressed by the artist because I'm left brain centric.
Business
All
incels.
these years, these artists, business incels. They've been oppressing me, charging thousands of dollars, and they never do what I want. And the artists, they think they're so good. And now the power is in my hands. Now look how the tables have turned. I've seen this perspective a lot online. I think it's very cute and also very sad at the same time.
I hate it.
But it's a real thing. Like there are people feeling very vindicated now that they have now dominated trained artists, like disciplined artists. To them anyway. I'm using their words.
It's like Revenge of the Nerds,
funny,
but they think that nerds are bullies also.
Definitely picturing them with like the alfalfa hair sticking up in glasses with tape and stuff, like, and then but making a fist and like, it's my turn now, and then putting on like a cloak.
Is that the world we live in now? It's not Coolio's Gangster's Paradise. It's like some warped version of that, where some nerd is like really mad that he couldn't color inside the lines when he was 4 years old and he got scolded. Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to dedicate my whole life to proving my kindergarten teacher wrong. That's depressing to think about.
That's funny. Yeah.
Man.
But, yeah. Okay, so actually, I wanted to turn it a little bit because we're just making fun of people quite a bit here, and I think it's fair criticism. But I also want to like I want to touch on how freaking cool the technology is that's there, whether it be the word processing stuff or the image generation stuff, or even like they have tools for animation. It is growing rapidly. It's something that is inevitable that we will likely be working with in the future.
Yeah.
In a capacity that's more moral, hopefully. I don't think I would touch the technology in a professional sense. Like I wouldn't use it in my game until I morally accept it, until I'm using models that are 100% artists that have given their stuff to the technology. Because basically, like for example, I've used Stable Diffusion before, and Stable Diffusion itself is a program that just functions kind of on its own. It is an open source like engine that is learning, and it understands when you feed it images that blah, blah, blah. It does things with it, and it can create images. That guy, Stable Diffusion on its own, is an amazing tool, technology, and something that we should all kind of be curious about as if we're artists or even just creators in general, because the technology has no limits, like for creating cool things or for aiding in the pipeline of creating something interesting. For example, this is something very simple that Stable Diffusion does. I keep Stable Diffusion installed on my computer because it has a really, really good upscaler. Because when you upscale something in Photoshop, you have a couple algorithms to use, and they're all crappy for upscaling it after a certain degree. But because it's got this like deep understanding of images and image clarity and whatever, when you upscale something 4, 8, 16 times bigger than the original image, it does a really, really good job at making an image like work at a large scale. So if you have an image you made and you're like, damn it, I didn't make it 300 DPI, you could upscale it and there it is, it works. Or another thing is like making depth maps for 3D, for video or any sort of application. There's ways to render out depth maps from a 2D image. Like, and that's a tool that usually only 3D software can do. So there's like the tool itself, I think, unless I'm missing something, maybe there's something more devious behind the tool. But as far as my understanding goes, Stable Diffusion on its own, without any sort of image models, is completely unpirating. It doesn't steal anything from anyone. It's moral. It's a technology that's it's an AI essentially that's always being improved upon. And I think that the conversation is mostly around like the models, the training models, the data that it uses after the fact. Maybe I'm wrong, actually. I'd like to learn a little more about it. But anyway, so in that way, I think it's a technology that's totally very interesting and very applicable in development pipelines and workflows and stuff. And I think it's just a matter of getting those moral dilemmas out of the way and making it legal and making it like, I don't know. Aside from just the wholesale generating a piece of art, which I think a lot of people are just using it like, I'm just making an image and whatever that is, like they don't care. Like it's just the wholesale image and they render it and they put it online. They say, look, this cool thing I made. Aside from that, there's actually like real application. You can feed it video and you can have it treat the video like add shadows to an unshaded animation, or recolor someone's eyes, or a lot of interesting applications. And I think that the technology is very valid. And yeah, the question is, I think a lot of the turmoil really just comes down to the people who are just wholesale using it to call themselves artists and make art and post it on Twitter and stuff like that.
For sure.
Regardless of the people's art who they're actually utilizing to get there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my stance on like the positive side. I don't know how you feel about all that stuff, or maybe you know a little more about it than I do.
No, I don't know anything about like Stable Diffusion's model or anything like that. I just know it takes a while to make an image. So maybe that's why, is because it's not based on some bigger language model. For me, I believe that these tools, regardless of how good they eventually become, because we're going to see like excellent versions of this stuff within our lifetime, even if it's not there now or won't be for a while. I guess my kind of ethos when it comes to these tools, and I don't know, this is still fresh to me, so maybe it'll change. I want to improve the efficiency of what I and my teams do without sacrificing the quality of the work. And to me, the quality of any work is entirely dependent on the people that give input into that work. And I don't think we can ever, regardless of how good the tooling is, I don't think we will ever be able to circumvent the process of ensuring the quality of a vision or without people, right? You can't not have people if you want the truest version of something to exist. Because without that, it's just a person and an idea and a representative way to present that idea, but not a collaborative one. And to me, at least, these visions require having input from other people. Even solo game developers, as a perspective counterexample, there is like they weren't completely making these games in a vacuum. Even Concerned Ape, who built Stardew Valley like entirely on his own, like still had people by his side doing like it, just being there on the journey with him, providing input, testing the game, like just leaving that between a person and an AI. Maybe that is going to be the future, but like, man, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best version of the future. I don't know if we get the best products out of that. I don't know that we will have the best like outcomes for people financially from that. And I don't know if the markets are going to be better as a result of that. There's already 14,000 games released on Steam every single year, right? If that number increased to 140,000 and 139,000 of those were absolute trash, does that really improve the quality of options that people have?
Right.
So I don't know, the proliferation of this technology and the ability for it to proliferate ideas, like, is that a good thing if the quality is not there? And I don't know if I want to live in a world where people are just shitting out ideas, because I can already see that on Twitter, right? And like that doesn't give me hope.
Right.
So yeah, man, I mean, I think the positive outcomes here could be extremely positive, but only if these tools are used as tools and not as replacements for standards or replacements for people.
Yeah, very well said. I think that's the key, is like the end product being made by a collaborative effort, even if it's like an independent, like a solo person. As you're making something, you're having a conversation with your experience and your own thoughts and your the way you think is, and that's what makes the product human, is like you had this conversation as you were making it. You made these decisions based off of like real life inspirations. And to go even further than that, like just the nuance of what you can create, the detail and the reasons why you're justifying all those things as you're creating a work of art. Whereas, so for example, like if you're making a character or something, the armor or the clothing is influenced by something, like the culture that this character lives in, this imaginary world that is maybe based off a real life culture that you saw. All these things give the work of art gravity. And as far out as like concepts can be, there's always that little note of relevance to our reality that only a human can insert there. And so as far as character design, that gives it such a strength. Whereas an AI, it can emulate what it sees, but its justification is only because it's taking the sum of what it knows and applying it to the final image, as opposed to making a real actual decision on, for example, culture, different colors based off emotions that you want to use. Aside from like the obvious, like if you tell it, I want it to be dark and mysterious, it's going to use red and black and blue and brown, like aside from the obvious stuff, it can recognize that stuff at this point.
Yeah.
But only a human can give it that relevancy to our world that we all share. And I think that's what the greatest strength of any art is when we can relate to it. Even like we watch anime, that's something from across the sea, on the other side of the world, but we still find relevance in it because we're all human. We all understand like emotions. We all share emotions. And we know, like, I don't know, we share the cultures in certain ways, and we understand their culture in a certain way. So when we see a representation of something, as even if it's abstract, like a Ghibli film, the designs of the vehicles in there, while they may be kind of fantastic, we can still draw comparisons to our own, the vehicles that we know and understand, engines and motors, and all the imagery that Miyazaki uses in his movies, like a lot of sky machines and flight and stuff like that. Like that all applies to people, and people can relate to that and understand that, and that way it connects to people. Whereas you get a facsimile of that with an AI generated image. The AI doesn't have a notion of any of that stuff. It just has a superficial kind of look at what the world looks like. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't tie any of that in with reason, which is an important part of creating something, is having a reason to do something.
Yeah.
And at this stage, anyway, obviously it could be improved. At this stage, from what I see very, in a metaphorical sense, two-dimensional deliverables from AI. As good as they look, they're very superficial, and they're also, you can't apply the images themselves, right, to a pipeline. Like, yeah, sure, you can generate a cool image here and a cool image there, but the guy who hired you is asking for costume design for his space movie, his space opera, and it needs to abide by these very specific rules. Like, this nation is very inspired by Native Americans and Mayan Aztec stuff, and because of that, you want to have kind of animals or nature permeating the art, and maybe an AI can interpret that in a certain way, but I think it's really up to the creator to put those elements of a concept in the painting or in the work of art, or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, you can tell the AI to do that, but to do it in a consistent way, in a stable way, at this point, I don't see it working. Like as any solo dev may have, I considered AI as part of a workflow for me. That's why I downloaded it and tried it. I was like, yeah, this might be interesting. Who knows? This was before the whole conversation of stealing art and stuff propped up. I was like, oh, okay, maybe don't do that. Maybe don't have that included in my stuff that I'm trying to sell. But from working with it, I cannot see how it applies to the workflow. I could not use it as a way to generate monsters or even concept art for environments, because I already have a specific idea in mind, and the AI just is not capable of creating something stable enough, something relevant enough to what I'm imagining. It's just not there. So yeah, I don't know how I got started on that rant, but
I think that's great, man. Even taking into account that example, I think there is a way that you could work the example of the costume for a movie, right? The way that you could use AI within that workflow is to help with the iteration process, to go from ideation where you set out that initial example, you work with a machine tool to hone in on that in the same way that,
Hmm.
people have been using tools to augment their work for hundreds of years, like
Right.
around the time of industrialization and even before, that we've been doing in human history forever. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
but
because we
but
have parallels like that for software that we use to work is making things so much easier. Like I can make a song just by like humming into my microphone because some of the software just makes songs based off of like MIDI music. It'll
right,
add notes just based off of me whistling or something.
right, totally. But
So
like
that's cheating.
you also respect the value in having someone that understands that creative process
Oh, totally.
specific to music
Hmm.
to like have a hand in that, in the creation of that work.
Right.
And I don't know, man. It all just feels like a magic trick, right? And it's all hollow. Like if all of our experiences just become facades, then I feel they lose their artistic meaning. And if we have all of these experiences that are devoid of any meaning, like why even bother with any of them at all? You know?
Yeah.
And I I don't know, man. I see the two paths. We're at that that meme where it's like the person standing at this crossroads and they're looking at these two paths, and one of them is like some dark castle and the other one is like bright and it's got flowers and butterflies and stuff. I feel
Uh-huh.
like we're kind of at that inflection point right now. And that kid that's looking at those two paths is like staring right into
Is
the eye
looking
of
at the castle.
Mordor. Yeah, and they're just like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna start running towards the castle. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know, man. At least for my part, because we have to use these tools in our workflow. Like, it's going to happen. Whether you use them a
Hmm.
little bit now or a lot now doesn't really matter because we're all going to be using a lot of them in the future because it is
Yeah.
just going to remove so much of the tedium and inefficiency from the process of making and doing things. However, we just have to be so mindful of the
Yeah,
usage
watch
of
where we
those things.
step on this stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
like a lot of people are throwing caution to the wind and just whatever. I'm using it for my game. A lot of people are making games with AI, solely AI characters, and like I wouldn't like morally you can't do that, and like also legally, it's gonna become a problem sometime, and just taking that bet is not worth it.
Yeah.
Like to have to pay back all that money or something, like I don't know how people aren't afraid of that. Like to produce a game that has AI stuff in it and being like, oh, now the law is you owe us all that money that you've probably spent on
Though
groceries all
those
those years
people
ago.
those people have plenty of reasons not to be concerned, which is part of the problem. you know.
Right.
Um,
And yeah. But
yeah.
I really like that sentiment that it is technology will always march forward. Like that's our culture. And to be so skeptical, like there are some people who are just anti AI. They won't even think about it. They won't even touch it. I like being in the middle because I like seeing new technology. I'm very interested about new technology. And so that's why I downloaded it and I tried it out for myself to see like where it's at, to see what it could be used for and see where its weaknesses are. It is very unthreatening at this point. I fear for like people who do illustration. Obviously, it's difficult, or photography, something like that. That is something that is definitely in jeopardy. Those jobs, because people who would rather hire someone from India and pay them $5 to make like all their artwork for their project is the type of person who would skip that and go right to AI and do that. So those people are missing out on that industry. Like in that industry, they're missing out on that that revenue. So that is already in jeopardy because of this stuff. There's people that would replace a human being for their project because there's a lot of projects that's just content. People just want to make content nowadays. But because I am familiar with it, I see no reason to really worry. I want I'm sure maybe there'll be some artists listening. Like I myself am an artist. You're an artist as well. Like just now remembering some paintings you did in college. I remember seeing. Was that you?
I don't
Trying
know.
to
I mean,
remember.
I'd hesitate to call myself an artist now. I guess former artist.
Yeah,
Like I,
you dabbled.
yeah, I dabble. I dabble.
But yeah, like technology always can be used for evil, right? But people who really know their shit and know the industry and understand people will take any technology and use it to their advantage in a way that excels anything anyone can just produce at a whim, like people are doing now. As pretty as, like, shock value pretty as these things might look, there's really no substance there, and it's made by people who they don't have an understanding for the industry that they're entering in. Whereas an artist can take that tool and use it as like a jetpack to far exceed any of these jokers who think they're playing around with the software and making money off of it and stuff, just to try to replace other artists. Like, think of it as a boon. It'll eventually be everywhere. Like, it's already in Photoshop. Like, I can already generate stuff in Photoshop. It's in the AI text to speech stuff. Like, it's already there. Don't be afraid of it. Like, it is now another tool in our already, like, exceedingly powerful arsenal. And on top of everything, like, the stuff we generate, we're going to use our own standards. Yeah. Stuff that we create has to live up to our own standards. But yeah, I just hope that, like, law eventually gets to this medium, like, legislation, because I do believe that this, like, theft of art is immoral, and it will be abused until legislation is made. Yeah. And that is the big like sore thumb of the whole thing, like the stealing and the destroying of jobs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's the sore point. So I hope that we eventually overcome that, and people see, like, no, the AI tool, just like Bitcoin, people misunderstanding Bitcoin as this big money making scheme. Yeah. They're going to miss out on, like, when Bitcoin or whatever, like, decentralized economy is an actual real thing that people are buying fruit with, and the economy, it's an economy that's safe and all that stuff. Like, they're going to not have the benefit of that because they're going to be contributing to an economy that is antithetical to the Bitcoin. How are we for time? Are we getting low on time here?
Yeah, let's close out.
I was about to go into something else, but we can save that.
No, for next time. But yeah, I think to close out, just in response on my end, like, I agree not to be afraid of any of these technologies, right? But to embrace them in a way that is responsible and empathetic.
I think that's the thing to take away.
Yeah, man.
The true artists will only be stronger with more tools at hand if they decide to use them or not. Like, it is a fascinating technology. Technology in general is fascinating and liberating in some ways. And, you know, there's stuff there that'll be nice.
Strange
times.
Strange times.
Those are great conversations. Very, like, dystopian future conversations, both of them. But I thought it was appropriate to bring up AI. Like, that's the thing. I didn't want to bring it up with a guest on, because what if Will said something, like, bad and people hated him?
That's all right.
Like, I'm assuming an audience is listening to this, but I want to always assume that because, you know, it's going to be online forever.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to bring up something so, like, divisive with a guest, because I want people to love our guests. Like, we love our guest. Even though he didn't show, he's still sleeping or whatever the heck he's doing.
Oh, man. Just
I thought those are great conversations.
Yeah, me too, man. No, this is cool. So it's good to talk about this stuff.
I don't know what we can do. I don't know what we can do as a sign off, but do you want me to try?
Yeah, sure. Give it a shot.
No, I don't have a sign off. But,
that's all right. Let's hear it.
I don't know. Let's see. Thanks for listening, dear listeners. We have been the Story Players. I am at Acornbringer on social media. You can find me and my projects that I've been working on. I'm making a game right now, a horror game you can check out.
Sure are.
Zach, what have you been up to? How can people find you?
Yeah, I've been building a game studio that is only kind of semi-public right now, called Wildkind.
Okay.
But you can find me on... Is that really... I don't know. Socials, man. I'm on Discord.
What are your
and
ats?
LinkedIn.
What are your
at Zulu at Zulu Zach with an H, or Zulu Zach QC. Yeah, depending on the platform. So
you're going to have interesting things coming out someday to be public. People can follow you now and get in before, while the getting's good.
Oh, see, you're a natural at this, buddy.
I'd also listen to a lot of podcasts, so it's a lot of me parroting, like, what I hear from other podcasts. So we can workshop it.
Look at this. We need a buddy AI. just to
Oh,
do our
shit.
openers and closers.
Yeah, we can get the voice generation.
Train on all the other podcasts.
Just train on this data.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, I pity any robot AI that has my voice. When they could sound like Jude Law or like anything else.
No, you've got a great voice for podcasting. I mean,
Thank
look at
you. No,
dude, I
thank-
sound like I just smoked 3 packs of cigarettes.
Yeah,
So-
man, that's cool. You sound wizened and
Yeah.
gruff,
We'll sing
like a cowboy.
sing some Western songs. Old Western.
Yes. Let's do it next time.
All
All right. Well, thank you. That has been Story Players. We're trying. We'll be back again whenever we make the next episode.
Story
whenever
Players.
You post the next episode.
We're trying. Beautiful.
We're in the Primal Ooze format right now, so enjoy it while it lasts, because we'll eventually have a structure, maybe.
Yes. Love it.
But,
yeah, man. This has been
very
fun.
nice. Thank you. Great.
It has been. I appreciate you. And we'll figure out the
Appreciate you, man.
audio and editing and such. I'm slowly but surely working on it.
Yeah, maybe I can help out a little more. Right now I'm kind of hands off because my computer doesn't have capacity to hold gigabytes of video.
That's okay. I'll work on it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, let me know if you need any help with anything. But yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I guess bye to you too, huh?
Yep, bye-bye. I'm gonna hang out.
All right. Later, what's it?